Hi, hello, it is the end of February. You know what that means. It is time for my February wrap up and also what I had chose for my February TBR. If I read them, if I didn't, spoiler alert, I actually pretty much read all of my TBR. Also, side note, we have been off and on sick last week, actually not even a whole week ago. About 4 days ago, James had a surgery, and when we were at this hospital, of course, all of us picked up something. So if I sound weird, if I'm acting weird, it's because I have been sick. I can't actually hear out of my ears, which is very fun. And also I feel like I'm not my normal, like happy self, kind of My videos are probably boring right now, and I'm sorry about that. Just know we've been very much under the weather and have had a lot of things going on lately. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my wrap up. The first book on my TBR was actually Maybe Not by Colleen Hoover. I ended up putting this in last month's wrap up because on the last day of January, I ended up starting this and also finishing it. It's only 120 pages. I didn't rate it because it's a novella. I'm not actually going to talk about it in this wrap up, but it was on my TBR and I did end up reading it. Next on my TBR was Beautiful Chaos. This is book 3 in the Beautiful Creatures series, and I also rated this one 4 stars. This whole series so far has been a 4-star. I've been so intrigued. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Honestly, if I would not have found it in a thrift store, technically, I found the first book all the way to this one for free in the Airman's Attic on Base. If I wouldn't have found them, I don't think I ever would have known about this whole entire series. Never heard of it, never seen it before until I seen it there, and then I grabbed them because I thought I had seen them before. And I'm so happy I did because I've come to enjoy the series a lot. Read reviews on the first book. Some people apparently, when it was hyped once upon a time, it was overhyped, and I guess it's just not that good. But I've been enjoying it. It is YA fantasy, and the first book, how I kind of describe it, because I can't describe this book or the second book without, of course, spoiling things. I basically just say there are 2 main characters, a male and a female. Male is Ethan, female is Lena. They are somehow connected magically together, and it's very interesting how they have to kind of save one another's lives and certain things that go on. There are a lot of events that happen in each book, and also each book there is the magical world. They call it the caster world, kind of like spellcasters. There's also like vampires and demons and other random things, and then you have the mortal world. They both connect, and in each book it's cool to see how the mortal world and the magic world connect together through his family or the town that they're in. And each book just kind of gets better, but there's also that point where I'm kind of like, I'm glad there's only one more book because I feel like 3 books has been enough. The 4th book I hope will end very nicely, and I think once that book is done, I will be done with the whole series because that is a completed series, but I won't be starting any side series, to be honest. I'm kind of happy with so far these 3. If I were to end just these, I would be 100% happy, except for some of the things that happen at the end of this book that make me want to read the 4th book, if that makes sense. Then I have All the Light That We Cannot See. This was actually my first 5-star of the whole year. I was so happy about this book. I love this book so much. I love historical fiction sometimes. I haven't read too many historical fictions, but this book was really interesting, and for the most part I'm just gonna stick with the female's point of view. I don't want to spoil too much, but she is blind, and her father works at a museum in Paris. They end up fleeing Paris during the war and go to her crazy uncle. Everybody says he's crazy. He's been basically shut in his house ever since the war. Then they have to live life during the wars going on, and there's a lot of things that happen that I'm not going to spoil, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes. She also meets the other main character, the other point of view, years down the road, and when they meet together there are some things that happen. It's not very long that they are together, and then at the end of the book it is a little bit sad, but the overall story of this book is very great. And also it's not like a sad book in my mind. There is a part that is a little bit sad, but to me it's not enough to make you cry. It is enough to kind of stick with you. I do believe there's a movie out or a TV show. I just recently, I think today, watching a YouTube video, somebody said there was, so I'm kind of interested if there is, and I want to go watch it, but I'm kind of excited if there happens to be one, since this was such a great book. I thrifted Girl in Pieces so I don't have the dust jacket. I rated this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it a little bit in the very beginning, and then at the end, the first 100 pages I read in like one day. I enjoyed that. The end, maybe 100 pages, but the middle part I just wasn't 100% positive on. I just didn't care. This is about a story of a girl. It's fictional. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube, but basically she ends up doing something to herself. She goes to a psych hospital, and she's in that hospital for up until I think 150 pages. It's like part 1, and then she ends up getting out, and she starts trying to live her life, trying to better herself, and there's some things that she does that just kind of upsets me because she backtracks, and I don't like that, especially because there's like drugs, not great decisions because of alcohol, you know, just annoying things like that for me. And then the last 100 pages, I feel like I really got into it again. Because of that, I rated it 3 stars, and I will not be keeping this book. I wasn't overall happy about the book to keep it. I will be donating it to my free little library or just donate it in general, but I'm also kind of glad I got to read it. This was the only book not on my TBR. This is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This was our community, our local community's book club book of the month. We ended up picking it up. I picked it up much later than most people. Most people started this in the beginning of the month. I started this a few days ago and I finished it I think 2 days ago. It wasn't very many, and I ended up reading pretty much like 100 pages a day. I read pretty decent with it. I was enjoying it. I actually rated this one 4 stars. I don't believe I'm gonna be reading the second or even the third one. There's apparently 3 books out or 3 in the making. It ended up good to set up for the second book, but I do believe the characters at the end of this book were not the family that she works for in the second book. They don't have the same last name. So I wonder if there's some things that kind of happen that will get filled in between the 2 books. I don't really think I'm gonna pick up the second one, but originally I went into this book thinking, because I heard a few things off TikTok, more so books YouTube. I thought originally she was locked in a room and she only had the keyhole that she could kind of look a little bit around and out, and then that's how she would like spy on people. Well, not really spy, but she would see things. And then that's not how the family was. That's not at all. You basically get some of her backstory, and she's the housemaid for a good solid, I think 250 pages. A few pages later, she ends up not being the housemaid anymore. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's when everything kind of turns around, and I feel like I guessed everything that was going to happen to an extent. In the very beginning, you get this prologue. It's about a cop asking about who was upstairs, who has died. So that was really entertaining because it's very vague, and then you read the whole book and you get to the end and it answers your question. I kind of like that. I like this whole book. 4 stars. I'm glad that we read it, but like I said, I don't think I'm going to continue on. Lastly, I read Pearl Harbor's Final Warning, and I ended up kind of skimming the last 100 pages. So I didn't rate this one because in the beginning I read this, I started like kind of dual reading it with All the Light That We Cannot See. So both of those were war stories in a way. This one's more real. When I started reading this, I was really excited about it. Like 50, 100 pages, super excited. And then all of a sudden, I for some reason stopped getting excited about it. I don't know why. It was just me personally. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I just didn't want to read it anymore. I just wanted to pick up other books. I would have rated it about 2 stars because of how I physically felt while reading it. If I would have read it by itself and maybe like years from now, I'm sure I would have rated it 3 or 4 stars. So I don't feel like it's too fair to rate a book 2 stars just because of how I physically felt. So I'm not gonna rate it. I hope that makes sense. I don't want to necessarily damage the star rating when it was just because I just stopped feeling in the mood to read this book, and it wasn't nothing about this book. It was just me personally, if that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. And then my final book on my TBR for February was actually 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. Like I said, I'm gonna count this as we read all of the books on my TBR. I'm 84 pages into it. I'm not very far. I started this yesterday. I read 84 pages yesterday. I did pretty decent. We still have 3 days left of February, so it's not like I don't have days to finish this, but at the max, if I don't end up finishing it, I would like to at least finish it by the 3rd of March. I am going to include this in my wrap up, maybe also in next month's wrap up, but I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'm actually kind of getting into this book. It's kind of picked up a lot more. It usually takes me about 50 to 100 pages to get into her books. I forgot how much Ellen Hildebrand loves to kind of get sidetracked. She very much rambles. She'll be talking about, I think how I described it to my mom, she'll be talking about a character. Stage 2, a character will enter. And then she'll go to say, oh, I met Fred, let's say. I met Fred because we got a hot dog together. During that hot dog, we also went to the beach. And then one year we went to Disneyland. And then this year we went to here, and then blah, blah, blah. And it's like 2 whole pages of just this person and Fred and this person and the Fred. And then all of a sudden to get back to Fred entered into the room. That's how I know Fred. It's like always so many pages or so many paragraphs of back-splaining that I just don't feel like is so necessary. And I forgot how much of her books, probably about 25 to 50% of her books could be cut in half, because I feel like she over-explains everything, every single detail. I don't know if that's just me, if that's a personal opinion, or if there's other people out there who feel the same way. That was like my major thing, besides of course like the political things that she always has to put in books. But I do sometimes get into her books and I kind of enjoy them. For the most part, only Hotel Nantucket was like my major, like, oh, I'm gonna keep that book. The Identicals and then the Summer Affair, I'm getting rid of those books. And this one so far, I'm kind of liking it how I liked Hotel Nantucket, which is a great sign. I'm gonna count this one and put it in my wrap up, but like I said, I'm only 84 pages in, so not too far in because I do believe it's a 400-page book. Here's all the books for my February wrap up. I'm so excited that I got to read all of these books and I'm closer to hitting my goal already, which is very exciting. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Also, sorry for how I feel, how I'm acting. Of course, since I'm a little bit under the weather, I apologize for that. I'm so sorry that I got sick. Be sure to stay tuned for any upcoming book video, and also I have a very special TBR video coming up picking March's TBR. I'm going to eventually film that, not today, but sometime when hopefully I feel better so I can be more happy and more just cheerful. I'm going to be filming that, and I have a special little thing, if you noticed anything up there, that I will be now doing for my TBR, or at least for a little bit of my TBRs. So stay tuned for that video. Of course, any other upcoming video, book related video, if you want to, check out the playlist down at the bottom. As always, subscribe, comment, leave a like, and I hope to see y'all next week, and God bless.